Welcome to the Review Crew, a brand new show from IGN where we gather folks from around the gaming community to talk about the biggest and best games. This week's game is Demon Souls on the PlayStation 5. I'm your host, Zach Ryan, and this week my crew consists of Mitchell Saltzman, editorial producer at IGN, Tamoor Hussain, managing editor at GameSpot, and Steve Saylor of Can I Play That? Gentlemen, you did it. You reviewed a whole Souls game, which in the pantheon of gaming achievements is pretty hallowed ground. So I just want to take a moment right here at the top of the show to congratulate you for surviving a Souls review. I want to get our audience up to speed here in terms of what we're talking about when we talk about your reviews. Can each of you talk a little bit about the score you gave the game if you scored it, what your overall impressions are, and what your Souls history is, what your history is with the Souls franchise? Tam, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, so my history with it is I imported Demon Souls from Japan when it first came out for the PlayStation 3 and played through a decent chunk of it, and then I pretty much fell in love with that game right there and have been playing the Souls games since. But I reviewed it. I gave it a 9 out of 10, and I think for reasons we'll get into it, it's a phenomenal, fantastic achievement. I think it's an amazing honoring of the legacy, but I think for me, more importantly, and this is something I mentioned in my review, it speaks to what Bluepoint is capable of.
But what makes it special is how Bluepoint has applied its own creative vision to FromSoftware's original to remake the game not just as it was, but as it was meant to be, realizing its full potential.
I think it's as much a statement of how good that studio is as what FromSoftware has made.
We'll definitely talk a lot about what Bluepoint is capable of in the course of this show. But Mitchell, I wanted to toss to you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your review?
Yeah, my experience with the Souls series goes back to 2011, I believe, with Dark Souls 1. I kind of had a unique go-through of it because I was working for a YouTube channel, and pretty much all of my initial Souls experience was through doing Let's Plays for that channel. I've played and beaten every single one of them. I love every single one of them. And yeah, I'm happy to add the remake of Demon Souls to that list. So I gave it a 9. I think Bluepoint found a really good mix here of staying true to the original source and also modernizing it. Because, Demon Souls is the very first Souls games. It was, it's an 11-year-old game at this point. One of the things I say in my review is I went back and I played the original in this review process, and it felt old. So I think there's also a lot of, under the hood mechanical upgrades that Bluepoint did that we probably don't really feel all the time, but we definitely appreciate. I think that this is just a brilliant remake all around.
Right on. Mr. Saylor, what about your review? What do you got going on over there?
So this one, for me, my history of the Souls genre is very, very minimal. Actually, this is the very first Souls game that I ever played. I was aware of the franchise and at least of the genre, but anytime I would see my friends play it, they'd be like, no, Steve, you don't want to touch it. So I kind of was always afraid to sort of jump in. But since being able to try it out for the PS5 and also as someone who is a passionate advocate for accessibility, I really wanted to kind of see what essentially this franchise has to offer in regards to not only just accessibility and what the remake can be able to do, but also what is it that this kind of conversation around accessibility and Souls type games really is about, and kind of hopefully try to at least understand why this franchise is so revered and why there is a lot of people really not necessarily adamant, but just very passionate about not wanting to be able to add in a lot of sort of things to be able to make the game either easier or in regards to difficulty options. So for me, jumping into this, I was scared, nervous, frightened, and by the end of it, it was scared, nervous, and frightened. That it was just like, you guys are masochists. I mean, I swear.
Scared, nervous, and frightened are the top 3 feelings that you that you feel when you're playing a Souls game. So I think you did it right, Steve. Congratulations on that.
Okay, phew. All right.
Yeah. We're going to try a new segment this week on Review Crew. I want to talk to each of you about what the best and the worst parts of Demon Souls are. So this is a very simple segment. What do you think works best, and what do you think needs improvement? Mitchell, let's start with you.
So I think my favorite thing about Demon Souls, and I'm not saying that Demon Souls structure is better than Dark Souls. I appreciate that it's different. It's the fact that you can, after you beat the first level, you can basically go to any of the other 5 levels at any, at your own leisure, at your own discretion. And the thing I don't like about it is I've kind of touched upon it already. It's the upgrade system. The upgrade system for weapons is just, it's a mess. It's just too much. There's too many different rocks I'm picking up. I don't want to pick up any more rocks.
I think the best thing one of the things I really love is like the load times in this game are unreal. How speedy it all is. Like, you remember the original Demon Souls? It was, I think, minutes in between like loading screens, and also like the ability to travel from world to world without going back to the Nexus. And I think the thing that I hate, still not hate, but like still I feel like it doesn't need to be this way, is the multiplayer system. This far in, the novelty of having different stones and putting down signs and stuff like that, I get it, but it's also worn off on me. But sometimes I wish there was just an option that was like, invite friend to game, and then you're in. Like, it's fine. It doesn't need to be that way.
Steve Saylor, what's your best and worst for Demon Souls?
So I'll get the worst out of the way, because obviously people are probably going to expect me to say, yeah, it's very inaccessible. That's probably the worst part about it. But there are some things I do enjoy about it. And a few, we kind of already touched on this a few times. It is fast. I do like, it's not like Celeste fast when you die and you come back, but it is still pretty fast within usually seconds to be able to kind of come back to the beginning again, which is pretty cool. So I'd say, and also as well, the best is that I finally get it now. I understand why you all like these games so much. It may still be a game that I'll probably try to jump into in other games and try it out for myself. But until I'll keep experimenting with it, and hopefully there'll be more accessibility added into future titles in this kind of genre. But for right now, I'll say like, okay, I understand it, I get it, and yeah, it's a pretty cool game.
One of us. One of us.
By now, Bluepoint has really made a name for themselves by recreating some of our favorite gaming memories. And between this and the work that they did on Shadow of the Colossus in 2018, I think they've sort of cornered the market on what a remake should be. I wanted to call out a couple of things specifically about Tam and Mitchell's reviews in particular that spoke to this point. Tam, in your review, you said,
what makes it special is how Bluepoint has applied its own creative vision to FromSoftware's original to remake the game not just as it was, but as it was meant to be, realizing its full potential. The result is a title that pays homage to FromSoftware's work, but at the same time stands as brilliant in its own right.
I want to begin this conversation by talking a little bit about what makes a great remake and how a developer like Bluepoint treads the line in being faithful to the original while bringing a game up to speed on a decade of game design. And that includes accessibility options here too. So I want to start by talking about like how Bluepoint has towed the line, but also done something that is uniquely their own.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about the Demon Souls remake and about the Souls series in general is that, every Souls game that has come out has kind of taken the same foundation, added its own unique flavor per game, but also iterate on that, base level foundation. And, Demon Souls was the one that started, so it has like kind of the least amount of iterative improvements. And so I think what Bluepoint did is they used the successive Souls games as kind of like a blueprint to modernize Demon Souls and bring it up to the modern standards. So you have things like the tool belt in Dark Souls 3 that was added into the remake. You have omnidirectional rolling, which was introduced in Dark Souls 2. That's in the remake. So I think what Bluepoint did very smartly is they kept as true to Demon Souls as they could, while also adding in these litany of quality of life improvements that Souls veterans have gotten used to as they've played each of these games, that have come out in the future.
The other thing that is important, like I think that Bluepoint as a studio is remarkably adept at understanding or like getting in touch with the spirit of the games that they're trying to remake. I honestly don't know how they do it. Like, it has to be a mixture of being given just an incredible amount of access to the assets they need, to the people that made those games. and also partnering with, you know, the people that are making those games, and also having clearly a love of the game. It's not, you can tell that they care about the games that they're remaking, and it's not just, you know, mercenary wet work, just making this game look good and nice for the new age. And I think that's what really sticks out to me about this game and the modernization of it. It's, I think I mentioned it, like things, even when things look different, they still feel the same. Like standing in the Nexus felt like standing in the Nexus, even though what I was seeing was completely different from how it used to be. And the fact that they managed to do that is kind of a magic trick.
Steve, yesterday we spoke a little bit about how accessibility has really started coming into the greater conversation in a major way in the last few years. So I wanted to ask you a similar question about how developers can incorporate learnings around accessibility while remaining to the original experience. In your review specifically, you talk about how difficulty isn't really the issue with Demon Souls, and that, you know, shoehorning some kind of difficulty option into the mix here would actually sort of, as you said, crowbar the experience. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so a lot of the conversation around accessibility and these type of games is usually around whether or not these type of games should have a difficulty option, or at least what some would say an easy mode. And I was kind of on that side as well, where like, yes, an easy mode would be considered an accessibility option, and something like that would be great for these type of games. But it wasn't until I really kind of dove into this game and I finally understood why why the gameplay is as is, and why it is difficult, why it is the challenge that is the game, that is part of the gameplay. And I felt that the difficulty options, adding that in, would definitely change the fundamental of the gameplay itself. And I still say to this day, I think difficulty options would be great in this game. However, in its current form of what we know of difficulty options, I don't think it would fit, and it would be like a crowbar into the gameplay. So with that being said, if easy mode is not the problem and it's not the solution, there are definitely ways to be able to kind of add in accessibility from the forefront. The genius of the Souls games is that there is a language for this type of gameplay. And the beauty and the drawback to it is that the language isn't taught to the player. You do have to try to figure that out for yourself, whether it's the strategy of how to be able to defeat an enemy or a boss, or how to be able to kind of get through a particular section with as minimal deaths as possible, or at least try to be able to get through it with as many souls as possible. And I found that with this is that because that language is not taught to the players, this makes it a little bit more difficult for disabled players to be able to grasp that language or become fluent in that language, because there is something that is physically blocking a person with a disability that is trying to be able to learn that language well.
Yeah, I think you've got a lot of great points in there, and your review talks a lot about a lot of different options that could have been implemented as well in terms of accessibility that we'll get to later in the show. Our next topic, I want to talk a little bit about Demon Souls as a launch game. Demon Souls is the first major AAA release developed exclusively for the PlayStation 5. And I think that it's a really sort of an odd choice, but also a very interesting choice. Mitchell, in your review, you say that it's all around a magnificent showcase for the power of the PlayStation 5 and an enticing taste of what's to come if things can look this good in a launch game. I wanted to talk to each of you a little bit about what this game means as a launch game. Tam, can we start with you?
Yeah, I think what I love about it is it represents a kind of changing of ethos in Sony, and shows where their thinking is at. I think firstly, it is absolutely wild to think that there's a Souls game as a major launch title for a console, and even more so that it's Demon Souls. Notoriously, you know, Sony has a bad history with Demon Souls. Shuhei Yoshida said it was bad and didn't really understand it, and look where we are now. But I think the fact that Sony put their eggs into this basket speaks to their understanding of what people want in the industry, or what people come to PlayStation for: distinct, unique experiences. that's what Sony has kind of built their success on in the past generation. Their first party titles are all, they're technically you could group them under third person action games, but like they all have a unique flavor to them. I think having Demon Souls available as PS5 launch title not only speaks to Sony's understanding of what people come to them for, but also their willingness to still take some risks. Souls games are still a niche for various reasons. They are massive now, way bigger than they were when Demon Souls first came out, but still undeniably a niche. I think it's really powerful for them to have that. And as someone who, one, loves these games, it's really heartening to me. And two, it just, as someone who likes games as a whole, it gives me confidence that Sony understands what makes them successful and what the kind of things that their audience, the people who buy their games, as diverse as they are, would be interested in.
One of the things that really makes me excited about Demon Souls as a launch game and as like kind of a graphical showcase of what the PlayStation 5 can do is, you typically think of games that push the graphical power of a console, and it's things like The Last of Us Part 2. It's things like it's these very cinematic, story-based games or like shooters in general. And the Dark Souls series has always been really pretty, but it's never been this like absolute graphical showcase. It's usually gotten by with its art direction and just how cool like everything looks stylistically. And with Demon Souls, I feel like this is the first time that the artistic mastery has matched up with the technical mastery, and just like the ability for this game to be a constant 60 frames per second in, it's not true 4K, it's upscaled 1440p, but nonetheless, like it looks absolutely astonishing and at a super smooth frame rate, which again, like that's something that the Souls series has honestly kind of struggled with. If anyone's played, even just Demon Souls, but also especially the original Dark Souls, going to Blighttown and remembers.
We all remember Blighttown.
Oh my God. So like to see how far this series has come, it's just amazing. And it like I said in the review, it's super exciting to see, if this is how good a launch game can look on the PS5 and perform. Man, I can't wait for that Elden Ring.
Steve, what's your take on the technical prowess here as a launch game?
So even without really playing any of the Souls franchise, I could definitely tell that this game was truly made for the PlayStation 5. Not only just like you all said, it's gorgeous. It definitely pushes the graphics capabilities and the frame rate to its utmost fullest. And but I also was very interested to kind of see that it was able to integrate a lot of the new features that the PlayStation 5 can be able to offer. On the DualSense controller, the haptic feedback and the adaptive triggers actually really come into play and add a really cool immersion into the game. And then I also have the Pulse Wireless 3D headset, and playing that in 3D audio has been absolutely amazing, and being able to immerse myself into this world. And one thing actually that also is kind of an accessibility feature, but I didn't mention it in my review, but I thought was actually really cool, was this is the first time we actually been able to see the true potential of the game help feature that Sony promoted a couple months ago. Yeah, where the fact that I think there are over 180 game help videos that you can be able to access as long as you have a PlayStation Plus account, an active PlayStation Plus account, where you can be able to double tap on the PlayStation button, and you can be able to, whatever section of the world you're in, it'll come up with a few videos that will sort of show you what's coming up ahead. It doesn't really tell you like how to be able to defeat a particular enemy that's coming up, but at least it will let you know, hey, by the way, there's going to be someone's going to throw a fireball at you. Stand back.
Steve, in a year where The Last of Us 2 is nominated for an accessibility award at the Game Awards, this is a first-party game where you've pointed out like several areas where accessibility could improve. Just as a first-party game at the start of a generation, what does this mean for accessibility on the PS5?
What I do like about this, and it's obviously with this game, it is pretty inaccessible, and I will say for disabled players currently in its current form, there's majority of disabled players are not going to be able to play this. However, when you have this with the contrast of Demon Souls and Miles Morales, which actually does have an amazing accessibility features that are built in that actually are an improvement over the first game, it's really cool to be able to kind of see that accessibility is at least being talked about now. It's part of the conversation. Whereas before, us within the accessibility community, we've been talking about accessibility for years, but it's really only kind of come to the forefront, or at least in the public knowledge of gamers within the past few, and for most actually this year with The Last of Us Part 2. Whether like I'm a small part of that, which is kind of cool, but the fact that conversation is happening is great. And now that at least accessibility is being like known and is aware, I think now the real work begins, where we can be able to see more games being able to add more accessibility options, because there is a foundation and there is a cornerstone that of accessibility that is kind of being put into the DNA of Sony and PlayStation, that is going to be really, really interesting to see in the next few years what future PlayStation Studios titles will be like and how accessible they'll be. Because I would love to be able to get to a point where within about 5-10 years from now, I'll be able to review games and basically nitpick what the accessibility is there, instead of basically just saying, hey, why don't you have some accessibility settings? That'd be great.
Right. Well, I think we can all agree that this is a very promising first start, both in a technical aspect and an accessibility aspect, at least in opening up that conversation. Gentlemen, we are just about out of time. We've got to wrap up this episode of the Review Crew. But before that, we have to play the lightning round. And basically what's going to happen here is I'm going to ask each of you rapid fire questions. You're going to come back with your responses. We're just going to have a little fun. So let's start with you, Mitchell. You dusted off your PlayStation 3 to play the original Demon Souls before you did your review for this game. So tell me, what was the last PlayStation 3 game that you played before Demon Souls?
It was probably Demon Souls. Before this new playthrough of Demon Souls, it was also probably Demon Souls. I don't know. Maybe it was probably a PS1 classic game like Resident Evil or something. I might have dusted off Resident Evil 2 to get ready for the remake.
Okay. All right. Tim, quickly rank every Soulsborne game thus far. Sekiro counts.
Bloodborne, number 1. Number 2, Dark Souls. Number 3, Sekiro. Number 4, Dark Souls 3. Number 5, Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin. Number 6, Hollow Knight. Number 7.
You didn't put Demon Souls in there, and you also put Hollow Knight on the list. So you're out. You don't. No prize money coming your way.
Demon Souls goes before Dark Souls 2.
Okay, Steve, as a newcomer to the Souls series, what's the best advice that you could give other new players?
Don't be afraid to suck, because you're going to suck often. You're going to suck early. It's okay.
Mitchell, okay, definitely clip that out. Mitchell, what has scarier dogs, Demon Souls or Resident Evil?
Honestly, probably Demon Souls. Demon Souls has the most annoying dogs in all of the Souls series, in my opinion.
I agree. Tam, even though Demon Souls is a remake, is it a Game of the Year contender in 2020?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't it be? It's the best game of the year. Obviously a contender.
Okay. Steve, what's one major accessibility improvement that Bluepoint can make right now that will open up Demon Souls to more players?
Ooh, large text. That would help at least me. Overall, higher contrast. Does it need to be really that dark?
Mitchell, in 2020, you've reviewed 19 games. What's wrong with you? Is everything all right at home?
I am a broken man, and I need help. That's all I can say.
Tam, what's the best build for somebody who's never played a Souls game?
Just pick anything with magic in Demon Souls. You're probably good. I would maybe start with a royal if you want a decent balance, but pick a magic-based build and have a very easy, good time.
I picked.
That was my first mistake.
I picked a magician based on Mitchell's triumphant tweets about finishing the game, and I can tell you that the game is not any easier as a magician. Mitchell, when you create a character in a Souls game, do you tend to go hyper realistic, or do you just create something like Shrek every single time?
Honestly, I just use whatever the default is and just get into the game because I don't care what my character looks like. I'm going to be wearing a helmet for most of it. So
incredible. Tam, what do you want to see next from Bluepoint?
I'd love to see Bluepoint take on the legacy of Kane's Soul Reaver. I think it's desperately in need of a remake, and I'd love for them to be that studio. And now that they've cut their teeth on a From Software-like game, I think they'll be great at the ambience and the feel and the world.
Tam has a contractual obligation that whenever he appears on the review crew, he has to mention Soul Reaver. He did it in the pilot, which is unaired, but if he comes back in any subsequent episodes, he will be required to mention.
I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah, thank you. Steve, what's one game that deserves a full-on 4K remake that no one is talking about?
Ooh, I'm gonna go personal, and I'm gonna go with Enter the Matrix. I know it's so out of left field, but I'm like, I love that game. I love the Matrix series, and I want a really good, nice 4K remake.
I love that answer.
Wow, that is not the answer. That was such a curveball. Thank you so much for joining me today on the second episode of the Review Crew. Before we say goodbye, I just want to take a moment and have you guys plug what you got going, where people can find you. Shout out your work. Tell us what you're doing outside of guesting on this show.
I'm on GameSpot. You can find me there doing things like reviewing Demon Souls. We have a weekly show dedicated to new consoles called Gen Next. It's available on youtube.com/GameSpot. I'm streaming now and then. I'm going to be streaming more on twitch.tv/TamoorH. I'm doing Metal Gear Solid currently because that's a game I can play without thinking too hard about it at this point, which is exactly what I need.
You'd be able to find me. I'm an accessibility advocate, so I talk a lot about accessibility on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/snowball. Yes, that is my actual URL. It's a long story. Signed up when YouTube was first started. And I talk a lot about accessibility in games. I do reviews and impressions about the accessibility in a lot of the titles that are going to be upcoming for the new consoles. As well, you can be able to find me on Twitter at Steve Saylor. Or you can be able to find me streaming mostly Destiny 2 on twitch.tv/blindgamersteve.
You can find me on Twitter at Jurassic Rabbit. I'm taking a couple of days, maybe even a week off, taking a nice little rest. I'm probably going to be streaming Demon Souls. So I don't know, follow me on twitch.tv/Jurassic Rabbit.
Got it. So not taking a rest. Copy.
Got but cool. A rest from work stuff.
Sure. Thank you all so much for joining me, and thank you at home for watching this week's episode of Review Crew. Remember, we're bringing you a fresh cast from around the gaming world every Monday to talk about the biggest games. But this is a brand new show, and we want to know what you think. If you've got questions, improvements, or suggestions for future guests on the show, drop them in the comments below or shoot us a line at reviewcrew@ign.com. We'll be back next Monday to discuss Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales with IGN's Jonathan Dornbush, Mashable's Alexis Ned, and Kinda Funny's Blessing Adeoye Jr. Until then, stay safe, stay smart, and keep it locked to IGN.